Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about one of the three most important elements in the exposure triangle, which is the shutter speed. You also have the ISO and the aperture, but I'm going to talk about those in later videos. If you understand the anatomy of a camera, you will notice that the shutter is a series of two curtains that is covering up the imaging sensor. So before the image was created, the shutter curtain covers up the imaging sensor. Say if this is the imaging sensor and no light go through. And as soon as you press the shutter release button, the shutter curtain opens up, the light goes in, and this is how a photograph is created. The shutter speed is measured by fractions of a second. It can be 1/50th of a second, 1/100th of a second, all the way up to 1/8000th of a second. Depends on what camera you have. And on the other side, it can be 15 seconds long, 30 seconds long, or all the way until you want it to stop. So what does shutter speed dictate? It can be two things. First, it captures motions in your photograph, and secondly, it determines how bright or how dark your photo is going to become. So let's talk about the easy part first, which is how bright or how dark your photo is going to become. The longer the shutter speed opens for light to go through to your camera sensor, the brighter your photo is going to become. For example, if I'm using a 1/50th of a shutter speed, the photo is going to be brighter than a photo taken by 1/100th of a second. And on the other hand, the less time the shutter speed opens, say if it's going really fast, the darker the photo is going to be. Now, the second thing, which is about camera shakes and motion blur. Camera shakes, as you know, is caused by our hand trembling when we take the photograph. So if you have a long enough shutter speed, in that duration of time, you will introduce hand shakiness or hand trembling. The way to overcome this is to use the 1 over the focal length formula. For example, if I'm using a 50mm lens, use a shutter speed that is faster than 1/50th of a second. And if I'm using a longer lens, say a 100mm lens, use a shutter speed that is faster than 1/100th of a second. So use like 1/200th of a second. Now that is for camera shakes. And now motion blur. Even if you are holding your camera perfectly still, or even if this is on the tripod, any subject that is moving so fast is going to be blurry. So the way to overcome this is just to use a faster shutter speed. So for example, if you have a baseball flying right across your camera, instead of using 1/60th of a second, use 1/1000th of a second. So that should eliminate that problem. So now you must be thinking, why don't we just use a faster shutter speed in all our shots? It can be true, but think about night photography. Sometimes we want to capture the image that is bright enough, but you need a much longer shutter speed in order for light to go into your camera sensor. So we can talk about that in later videos, but for now, I just want to take this away. Shutter speed measures how fast or how slow the shutter curtain moves inside a camera, and it determines how bright or dark your photo is going to be. And at the same time, be careful of motion blurs and camera shakes. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in other videos.